The Humble Beginnings. Marcus Hayes was born and raised in a modest neighborhood brimming with life, culture, and a strong sense of community. The streets he called home were a tapestry of vibrant murals, soulful music, and the unspoken resilience of a people determined to thrive despite adversity. Marcus was a quiet, introspective child who found solace in colors and shapes. While other kids played basketball in the park or rode bikes through the narrow alleys, Marcus could often be found sitting on his front porch with a sketchpad, transforming the chaos and beauty of his world into intricate drawings. Art was his sanctuary, his escape from the challenges of growing up in a low-income household. His parents, though hard-working, struggled to make ends meet. His mother juggled multiple jobs, while his father worked long hours as a mechanic. They supported Marcus's passion for art as best they could, but there was rarely money left over for supplies. Undeterred, Marcus made do with whatever he could find: pencil stubs, leftover house paint, and scraps of cardboard pulled from the recycling bin. By the time he was a teenager, Marcus had developed a unique style that reflected his experiences and identity. His paintings were bold, vibrant, and deeply emotional. Each piece told a story: the joy of children playing under a summer sun, the quiet strength of his mother after a long shift, the pain of witnessing injustice on his streets. His art was raw and authentic, a window into his soul and the community that shaped him. A talent unrecognized. Despite his undeniable talent, Marcus's journey into the art world was anything but smooth. He had never received formal training, and his lack of connections in the elite circles of galleries and curators made it nearly impossible for him to gain recognition. The art world, with its gatekeepers and rigid hierarchies, was a place where someone like Marcus, a black artist from a working-class background, was often overlooked or outright dismissed. Marcus submitted his work to local galleries and art competitions, only to face rejection after rejection. Some responses were polite but dismissive, citing limited space or a lack of alignment with our vision. Others didn't bother to respond at all. He once overheard a gallery assistant whisper to a colleague, "He's talented, but who's going to buy art from someone like him?" The sting of those words stayed with him. A fateful visit. One day, after another round of rejections, Marcus decided to take a bold step. Armed with his best paintings and a neatly prepared portfolio, he ventured downtown to Lawson & Company, one of the most prestigious art galleries in the city. The gallery was a stark contrast to anything Marcus had ever seen: gleaming floors, minimalist decor, and walls adorned with abstract works priced higher than his family's annual income. Wealthy patrons moved through the space, sipping wine and discussing art with a detached air of superiority. Marcus's heart raced as he stepped through the glass doors. He felt out of place in his well-worn jacket and scuffed shoes, but he reminded himself why he was there. He wasn't seeking validation, he wanted a chance to show the world what he could do. The gallery's owner, Mr. Richard Lawson, stood near the back, conversing with a group of elegantly dressed patrons. He was a tall man with silver hair, a tailored suit, and an aura of authority. Summoning his courage, Marcus approached him, clutching his portfolio. "Excuse me, Mr. Lawson," Marcus said politely. "I'm an artist, and I was hoping you might take a look at my work." Lawson turned to him, his expression immediately shifting from polite interest to thinly veiled disdain. He glanced at Marcus's worn clothing and the portfolio in his hands, his eyes narrowing. "And who might you be?" Lawson asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "My name is Marcus Hayes," Marcus replied, his voice steady, despite the knot forming in his stomach. "I've been creating art for years, and I believe my work could resonate with your patrons." Lawson let out a short, humorless laugh. "Do you have formal training? Any exhibitions under your belt?" "No, sir," Marcus admitted. "But my work speaks for itself. If you'd just take a moment." Lawson held up a hand to cut him off. "I'm afraid we're looking for established artists with a proven track record. Perhaps a community center would be more appropriate for your work." The dismissal stung, but Marcus wasn't ready to give up. "Please, just take a look," he insisted, opening his portfolio to reveal a collection of breathtaking pieces. Each painting was a vivid expression of life, culture, and resilience, full of emotion and depth. Lawson glanced briefly at the portfolio before shaking his head. "I don't think so," he said curtly. "This isn't the kind of work our clientele is interested in." With that, Lawson turned his back and walked away, leaving Marcus standing there, humiliated but refusing to cry. He quietly gathered his things and left the gallery, the weight of rejection pressing heavily on his shoulders. Resilience in the face of adversity. As Marcus walked back to his neighborhood, he replayed the encounter in his mind, each dismissive word from Lawson cutting deeper. But amid the pain, a spark of determination began to grow. He realized he didn't need Lawson or his gallery to validate his worth. He didn't need to conform to the elitist standards of the art world. What he needed was to stay true to himself and find another way to share his vision with the world. That evening, Marcus returned to his tiny studio, a converted storage room at the back of a community grocery store, and stared at a blank canvas. Slowly, he picked up his brush and began to paint. The rejection he had faced that day didn't break him, it fueled him. Every stroke of his brush was a declaration: "I am enough. My art is enough." Marcus vowed to keep creating, not for the approval of gallery owners or wealthy patrons, but for the people who truly understood the stories his art told. He would find his audience, even if he had to build it himself. Unbeknownst to him, this moment of quiet resilience would set the stage for a journey that would not only transform his life but also challenge the very foundations of the art world. A breakthrough encounter. Months after the humiliating rejection at Lawson and Company, Marcus Hayes was still working tirelessly in his tiny studio, channeling his frustration and determination into his art. He had doubled down on his commitment to tell the stories of his community, creating paintings that were even more vivid, powerful, and deeply personal. Each piece was a reflection of the life around him, the strength of the people, the beauty in their struggles, and the hope that kept them moving forward. Though the elite art world continued to shut its doors on him, Marcus remained undeterred. He turned his focus to his local community, finding small but meaningful ways to share his work. He displayed his paintings at libraries, coffee shops, and community centers, often receiving warm praise from neighbors who saw their lives reflected in his art. When the annual East Side Cultural Festival announced its lineup, Marcus knew it was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. The festival was a beloved neighborhood event that celebrated local talent with music, food, crafts, and art. While it didn't carry the prestige of a downtown gallery, it was a space where people appreciated authenticity. Marcus signed up for a booth, determined to share his work with anyone willing to stop and look. The Community Festival. The day of the festival arrived, and Marcus set up his modest booth with care. His paintings hung on simple easels, their bold colors and intricate details drawing the attention of passers-by. He had also brought smaller prints of his work, hoping to make his art accessible to those who couldn't afford original pieces. As the festival got underway, a steady stream of visitors stopped at Marcus's booth. Families, young couples, and elderly neighbors admired his paintings, many of them pausing to share how the art resonated with their own lives. A young woman pointed to a painting of a mother holding her child in a dimly lit kitchen, tears welling in her eyes. "This reminds me of my mom," she said softly. "She worked so hard to give us a better life." Moments like these reaffirmed Marcus's belief in his purpose as an artist. While he wasn't making millions or gaining the approval of elite critics, his work was touching lives in ways that mattered deeply. Evelyn Monroe's arrival. Unbeknownst to Marcus, the East Side Cultural Festival was about to change his life forever. Among the crowd that day was Evelyn Monroe, a renowned art critic and writer who had an uncanny ability to spot groundbreaking talent. Evelyn was known for championing artists who brought fresh perspectives to the art world, often discovering them in unexpected places. Evelyn hadn't planned to attend the festival. She had been driving through the neighborhood when the colorful banners caught her eye. Curious, she decided to stop by and explore. As she strolled through the festival, sampling food and admiring crafts, she stumbled upon Marcus's booth. The moment Evelyn saw Marcus's paintings, she froze. There was something magnetic about the art, its bold use of color, the intricate details, and, most of all, the raw emotion that seemed to leap from the canvas. She moved closer, inspecting each piece with the keen eye of a seasoned critic. One painting, a vivid portrayal of a young boy sitting on a stoop surrounded by crumbling buildings, held her attention the longest. The boy's expression was a mix of determination and vulnerability, and the background seemed alive with the textures and layers of the urban landscape. "Excuse me," Evelyn said, turning to Marcus. "Are you the artist?" Marcus, who had been chatting with a visitor, turned to face her. "Yes, I am," he replied, his tone humble but confident. "This work is extraordinary," Evelyn said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "It's alive. The stories, the emotion, it's all here." The conversation. Marcus was taken aback by Evelyn's enthusiasm. He had heard of her before. Her articles in prestigious art magazines were often the deciding factor in an artist's rise to fame. Trying to contain his excitement, Marcus introduced himself and explained his journey as a self-taught artist. Evelyn listened intently as Marcus spoke about his inspirations, his community, and the challenges he had faced breaking into the art world. She could see the passion in his eyes and the authenticity in his words. It was clear to her that Marcus wasn't just creating art, he was documenting the soul of his community in a way that was both deeply personal and universally resonant. "Marcus," Evelyn said, after a long pause, "I've seen a lot of art in my career, but your work, it's something special. I want to help you share this with the world." Marcus's heart raced. "What do you mean?" he asked, cautious, but hopeful. "I'd like to write about your work," Evelyn explained. "I'm certain that once people see this, they'll understand how powerful it is. The art world needs to see this." The review. True to her word, Evelyn featured Marcus in her next article for ArtSphere Weekly, one of the most respected art publications in the country. The article, titled "The Soul of the Streets: Discovering Marcus Hayes," was a glowing review that celebrated Marcus's unique vision and storytelling. Evelyn praised his ability to capture the resilience and humanity of his community, calling his work a revolution in contemporary art. The article went viral. Art enthusiasts, collectors, and curators across the country shared it on social media, marveling at the raw talent of an artist who had been overlooked for so long. Marcus's name quickly became a topic of conversation in art circles, with many wondering how such a remarkable talent had remained hidden for so long. The offers pour in. Within days of the article's publication, Marcus's life changed dramatically. He began receiving calls and emails from galleries, collectors, and art organizations eager to feature his work. Prestigious galleries that had once ignored him were now vying for the chance to host his first major exhibition. Collectors offered tens of thousands of dollars for pieces that had been sitting unsold in his tiny studio. At first, Marcus was overwhelmed by the sudden attention. But with Evelyn's guidance, he navigated the flurry of opportunities, ensuring that his art remained true to his vision. He agreed to his first major exhibition at a well-known gallery in the city, where his paintings were displayed to critical acclaim. The opening night was attended by critics, collectors, and art lovers who had come to witness the rise of a new star. A rising star. Marcus's rise in the art world was meteoric. His paintings began selling for tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of dollars. Media outlets featured his story, celebrating him as a self-taught genius who had shattered the barriers of the art world. But through it all, Marcus remained grounded. He continued to work from his modest studio, refusing to let fame distract him from his purpose. As Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point, he thought back to the day he had been mocked and dismissed at Lawson and Company. That rejection, painful as it had been, had pushed him to find his own path. And now, the world was finally seeing the brilliance he had always known was within him. This was just the beginning, and Marcus was ready for whatever came next. The rise to stardom. Marcus Hayes's meteoric rise to fame was nothing short of extraordinary. What had started as a humble dream in a cramped studio had transformed into a full-fledged movement, one that captivated the art world and beyond. Within months of Evelyn Monroe's glowing article, Marcus became a household name, with his paintings gracing the walls of prestigious galleries and museums around the world. Breaking into the big leagues. Marcus's first major exhibition at the Urban Canvas Gallery was a resounding success. The event was packed with collectors, critics, and art enthusiasts who had come to witness the debut of a fresh, unfiltered perspective in contemporary art. The energy in the room was electric, with attendees marveling at the depth and complexity of Marcus's work. One painting in particular, Resilient Streets, became the centerpiece of the exhibition. The piece depicted a bustling urban landscape, its inhabitants portrayed with raw emotion and vibrant colors that seemed to pulse with life. The painting was a celebration of community and survival, a tribute to the neighborhoods that had shaped Marcus's journey. By the end of the night, the painting sold for $500,000, a record-breaking sum for a debut artist. As word of Marcus's talent spread, invitations from renowned galleries and art fairs began pouring in. Within a year, his work was featured in exhibitions across the globe, from New York and Paris to Tokyo and Johannesburg. Each new display added to his growing reputation as a visionary artist who wasn't afraid to challenge conventions. Selling for millions. It wasn't long before Marcus's work reached the auction circuit, where it became a sensation. His paintings consistently fetched millions, with collectors vying for the chance to own a piece of his brilliance. One of his most iconic works, Heritage Unbroken, a sprawling triptych that depicted the struggles and triumphs of his ancestors, sold for an astounding $7.2 million at Sotheby's. The bidding war that preceded the sale became a headline story, cementing Marcus's status as one of the most sought-after artists of his generation. Despite the staggering sums his work commanded, Marcus remained focused on the message behind his art. "The money is secondary," he often said in interviews. "What matters to me is that my art reaches people, that it makes them feel something, that it starts conversations." Sparking a movement. As Marcus's fame grew, so did the media's interest in his journey. Major outlets featured in-depth profiles of the self-taught artist who had overcome systemic biases to achieve global recognition. Interviews, documentaries, and articles highlighted not only his talent but also the barriers he had faced as a Black artist in a predominantly white, elitist industry. His story struck a chord, sparking widespread conversations about racial inequality in the art world. Critics and audiences alike began to question why it had taken so long for someone of Marcus's caliber to break through. The conversations extended beyond art, touching on broader issues of representation, access, and privilege. Marcus embraced his role as a catalyst for change. "I'm grateful for the success I've achieved," he said during a televised interview. "But I know there are countless talented artists out there who haven't been given the same opportunities. It's time for that to change." A foundation for change. True to his word, Marcus used his newfound wealth and influence to create the Hayes Foundation for Artistic Equity. The foundation was dedicated to supporting underrepresented artists, providing them with the resources, mentorship, and exposure needed to navigate the art world's challenges. The foundation's flagship program, Emerging Voices, offered grants, studio space, and exhibition opportunities to young artists from diverse backgrounds. Marcus personally mentored many of the participants, sharing the lessons he had learned and encouraging them to stay true to their unique perspectives. Through the Hayes Foundation, Marcus also advocated for systemic change within the industry. He partnered with galleries and museums to create more inclusive curatorial practices and pushed for greater diversity in art collections and exhibitions. His efforts inspired a wave of initiatives across the art world, leading to tangible progress in breaking down barriers. Remaining grounded. Despite his immense success, Marcus never lost touch with his roots. He continued to live in the same neighborhood where he had grown up, albeit in a slightly larger house with a dedicated studio space. He could often be found walking through the streets, talking to neighbors, and drawing inspiration from the community that had always been his greatest muse. Marcus also made a point of using his platform to amplify the voices of others. He regularly featured emerging artists on his social media channels, attended grassroots art events, and donated his time and resources to local art programs. "Fame is fleeting," he once said. But the impact you have on others, that's what lasts. A celebrated figure. By the time Marcus turned 40, he had become a celebrated figure not only for his art but also for his advocacy. He was invited to speak at universities, conferences, and cultural summits, where he shared his vision for a more inclusive and equitable art world. His paintings were studied in art history courses, and his life story became a source of inspiration for countless aspiring artists. One of Marcus's proudest moments came when his work was included in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. The painting, Roots and Wings, depicted the journey of his ancestors and their enduring legacy, a powerful testament to resilience and hope. The ripple effect. Marcus's influence extended far beyond the art world. His foundation helped launch the careers of dozens of artists, many of whom went on to achieve significant success in their own right. Collectively, they formed a new generation of creators who prioritized inclusivity, authenticity, and community in their work. The art world itself began to change in response to Marcus's efforts. Galleries and institutions that had once been exclusive became more open to diverse voices, recognizing the value of different perspectives. Collectors began seeking out works by artists from underrepresented backgrounds, creating a more equitable market. Reflection. As Marcus stood in his studio one evening, surrounded by unfinished canvases, he took a moment to reflect on his journey. He thought about the rejection he had faced, the struggles he had endured, and the people who had believed in him when no one else did. He realized that every setback had been a stepping stone, shaping him into the artist and advocate he had become. His journey wasn't just about personal success, it was about opening doors for others and creating a legacy of empowerment. Marcus knew that his story was far from over. There were still more paintings to create, more artists to support, and more change to inspire. With a smile, he picked up his brush and began working on his next piece, ready to continue his mission of transforming the art world one stroke at a time. The Sweetest Revenge. Years after Marcus Hayes's dramatic rise to fame, his name had become synonymous with success, resilience, and change. His work was showcased in the most prestigious galleries, sold at record-breaking prices, and studied in art institutions across the globe. Yet, despite his accomplishments, Marcus carried a memory that still lingered in the back of his mind, a memory of the day Mr. Richard Lawson had dismissed him without even a glance at his portfolio. Marcus hadn't thought much about Lawson or his gallery since that day, choosing instead to focus on his craft and his mission to support underrepresented artists. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. While scrolling through art news one evening, Marcus came across a headline that caught his attention: Lawson and Company faces financial ruin amid declining interest and competition. The article detailed how the once prestigious gallery had fallen on hard times. Lawson and Company, which had long been a symbol of exclusivity and elitism in the art world, was now struggling to stay afloat. Changing tastes, the rise of more inclusive galleries, and Lawson's inability to adapt had led to dwindling attendance and sales. The gallery was on the verge of bankruptcy, and Mr. Lawson was reportedly desperate to sell. An unexpected opportunity. Marcus felt a spark of something he couldn't quite name: vindication, perhaps, or poetic justice. The man who had once mocked him was now facing the consequences of his arrogance. Yet, Marcus wasn't one to revel in schadenfreude. Instead, he saw an opportunity, not just for revenge, but for transformation. After consulting with his lawyer and close advisors, Marcus devised a plan. He would purchase Lawson and Company, not as the world-famous artist everyone now recognized, but as an anonymous buyer. He wanted to confront Lawson on his own terms, without the man realizing who he was until the time was right. The negotiations begin. Using a pseudonym, Marcus's lawyer reached out to Lawson with an offer to purchase the gallery. Lawson, desperate to find a buyer, eagerly agreed to a meeting. When the day arrived, Marcus dressed sharply, donning a tailored suit and a pair of sunglasses that lent him an air of mystery. He entered the gallery, now a shadow of its former glory, with a sense of anticipation. Lawson greeted him with feigned enthusiasm, his eyes betraying the desperation beneath his polished exterior. The gallery owner, now in his late 50s, looked older and wearier than Marcus remembered. The once pristine walls of the gallery were now sparsely adorned with uninspired pieces, and the air of exclusivity that had once defined the space had been replaced with an unmistakable sense of decline. "Mr. Hayes," Lawson said, extending a hand. "Thank you for considering this opportunity. Lawson and Company has a long history of excellence in the art world, and with the right vision, it could return to its former glory." Marcus bit back a smirk. "I'm interested," he replied coolly. "But I'll need to see the numbers and understand exactly what I'm getting into." Lawson led Marcus to his office, where he presented financial statements that painted a grim picture. The gallery was hemorrhaging money, and its reputation was in tatters. Lawson was clearly trying to downplay the severity of the situation, but Marcus could see through the facade. The final negotiation. Over the course of several weeks, Marcus's team negotiated the terms of the sale. Lawson, unaware of his buyer's true identity, grew increasingly desperate to close the deal. He slashed his asking price and offered favorable terms, hoping to offload the gallery before it collapsed entirely. Finally, the day of the final negotiation arrived. Marcus sat across from Lawson in the same office where, years earlier, he had been dismissed and humiliated. This time, however, the power dynamic was entirely different. As the final contract was laid out on the table, Marcus leaned back in his chair and removed his sunglasses, fixing Lawson with a steady gaze. "Before I sign," he said, his voice calm but charged with meaning, "there's something you should know." Lawson frowned. "What's that?" Marcus smiled faintly. "We've met before." Lawson's brow furrowed in confusion. "I'm sorry, I don't recall." "You wouldn't," Marcus interrupted. "Years ago, I walked into this gallery, portfolio in hand, hoping for a chance to show my work. You didn't even look at it. You told me to try a community center instead." Lawson's face paled as the realization dawned. You're Marcus Hayes," Marcus said, his voice firm. "The artist you dismissed without a second thought. The same artist whose work now sells for millions, who's been featured in galleries and museums around the world." Lawson sat back in his chair, visibly shaken. I didn't know," he stammered. "I had no idea." Marcus leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "You didn't care. You judged me before you even saw my work. But here's the thing, I didn't need your validation then, and I certainly don't need it now. What I need is this space, a space that can finally be used to uplift the artists you spent your career ignoring." Poetic justice. Lawson, humiliated and cornered, had no choice but to proceed with the sale. The contract was signed, and with it, Marcus became the owner of Lawson and Company. For Marcus, it wasn't just a transaction, it was a reclamation of power, a moment of poetic justice that symbolized how far he had come. In the days that followed, Marcus announced the transformation of the gallery. He renamed it the Hayes Collective and began the process of reinventing the space. The sterile, exclusionary atmosphere was replaced with warmth, color, and vibrancy. The gallery's mission was clear: to showcase the work of diverse and underrepresented artists, providing a platform for voices that had long been silenced. A new era. The opening night of the Hayes Collective was a celebration of art, community, and resilience. The gallery was packed with artists, critics, and supporters who had been inspired by Marcus's journey. The walls were adorned with works that told powerful stories, each piece a testament to the talent and creativity of artists who had once been overlooked. As Marcus stood in the center of the gallery, watching the crowd engage with the art, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had turned a place of rejection into a beacon of hope, proving that resilience and vision could triumph over prejudice and elitism. And as for Mr. Lawson? He quietly disappeared from the art world, his once pristine reputation tarnished by his own actions. Marcus, however, was just getting started. The Hayes Collective wasn't just a gallery, it was a movement, a legacy, and a testament to the power of believing in oneself. The legacy. Marcus Hayes had always believed that art was more than just images on a canvas, It was a powerful medium for storytelling, a way to connect with people and give voice to those who had been silenced. After purchasing Lawson and Company and transforming it into the Hayes Collective, Marcus's vision for a more inclusive art world began to take shape. The gallery became a sanctuary for underrepresented artists, a place where talent and authenticity mattered more than pedigree or connections. The sterile, impersonal atmosphere of the old gallery was replaced with a warm, inviting space that pulsed with creativity and life. The walls of the Hayes Collective told stories from every corner of the world, showcasing works that celebrated diversity, resilience, and innovation. The gallery didn't just display art, it celebrated it, creating an environment where every visitor could feel a connection to the pieces and the artists behind them. A cultural landmark. Within months of its reopening, the Hayes Collective became a cultural landmark. Critics hailed it as a groundbreaking institution that redefined what an art gallery could be. Visitors from around the world flocked to the space, eager to experience the bold and thought-provoking works on display. The gallery's first exhibition, Unseen Voices, featured works by emerging artists from marginalized communities. The collection was a resounding success, drawing praise for its emotional depth and the stories it brought to life. Pieces ranged from evocative paintings and sculptures to multimedia installations that explored themes of identity, heritage, and social justice. One piece, Fragments of Freedom, created by a young artist from South Africa, depicted the struggles of apartheid through a series of shattered mirrors and vibrant textiles. Another, Invisible Cities, was a sprawling mural that captured the beauty and complexity of urban life through the eyes of a first-generation immigrant. The exhibition not only showcased talent but also sparked conversations about the intersections of art, culture, and human experience. The success of Unseen Voices set the tone for the Hayes Collective. Each new exhibition pushed boundaries, challenging visitors to see the world through fresh perspectives. Marcus made it a point to involve the artists in every aspect of the process, from curating the displays to hosting workshops and panel discussions. For many, it was the first time their voices had been truly heard. Empowering artists. Marcus's commitment to uplifting others extended beyond the gallery walls. Through his foundation, he launched the Rising Creators Program, which provided mentorship, funding, and resources to emerging artists. The program focused on breaking down barriers, ensuring that talent, not privilege, determined who had access to opportunities. Every year, the Hayes Collective hosted the Emerging Voices Festival, a week-long event that brought together artists, collectors, and art lovers to celebrate creativity and innovation. The festival became a beacon for discovering new talent, with many participants going on to achieve significant success in the art world. Marcus took pride in watching these artists thrive, knowing that he had helped pave the way for their journeys. One such artist, Sofia Alvarez, was a young painter from a small town in Mexico. When Marcus first saw her work, a series of surreal, dreamlike landscapes that explored themes of migration and belonging, he was immediately captivated. He offered her a residency at the Hayes Collective, giving her the space and resources to develop her craft. Today, Sofia's work is displayed in galleries around the world, and she credits Marcus with giving her the chance to be seen. Reflection on the journey. Late one evening, as Marcus stood in the gallery after hours, he took a moment to reflect on how far he had come. The walls around him were adorned with works that told stories of triumph and transformation, each piece a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. He thought back to the days when he had struggled to find his place in the art world, the countless rejections he had faced, and the pain of being dismissed by people like Mr. Lawson. Yet, as he looked around the gallery, Marcus realized that those struggles had been necessary. They had shaped him, driven him, and given him the empathy and determination to create something truly meaningful. Without them, he might never have built the Hayes Collective, a space that had become a symbol of hope and possibility for so many. This isn't just my legacy, Marcus thought. It's the legacy of every artist who was told they didn't belong, every voice that was silenced, and every story that was left untold. Together, we've created something that will last. Mentoring the next generation. As Marcus continued to reflect on his journey, a knock at the gallery's door interrupted his thoughts. It was Malik, a young artist Marcus had recently taken under his wing. Malik, like Marcus, had faced his share of challenges, growing up in foster care, struggling to afford art supplies, and being overlooked by traditional institutions. But his work, a mix of abstract expressionism and street art, carried a raw energy and emotion that Marcus recognized immediately. "How's the new piece coming along?" Marcus asked as Malik entered, carrying a rolled-up canvas. Nervous, Malik admitted, unrolling the painting to reveal a stunning explosion of color and form. But excited. Marcus studied the piece carefully, his eyes lighting up with admiration. "This is powerful," he said. "You've got something special, Malik." "Don't ever doubt that." Malik smiled, his confidence bolstered by Marcus's encouragement. "Thanks, Marcus. I wouldn't be here without you." "Yes, you would," Marcus replied. "You've always had this in you. All I did was help you see it." A legacy of transformation. As Malik left to prepare for his debut exhibition, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Mentoring young artists like Malik had become one of the most rewarding aspects of his career. Each time he saw one of them succeed, he felt as though he was passing the torch, ensuring that the work he had started would continue long after he was gone. The legacy of the Hayes Collective was more than just the art on its walls, it was the lives it had touched, the opportunities it had created, and the barriers it had broken. Marcus knew that the gallery was only the beginning. His mission to create a more inclusive art world was far from over, but he was confident that the seeds he had planted would continue to grow. As he turned off the gallery lights and locked the doors for the night, Marcus felt a sense of peace. He had taken the pain of his past and transformed it into something beautiful, something enduring. His story was one of resilience, determination, and the belief that art could change the world. And through the Hayes Collective and the countless artists it inspired, that belief would live on. The legacy of Marcus Hayes was secure, a legacy of empowerment, transformation, and the unwavering conviction that everyone deserved a chance to be seen and heard.